Okay. All right. Shall we start the lecture? Yeah. Ladies, shall we start? So, welcome to this lecture number 14. So we are going to be looking at MySQL. And as you have guessed already, it's part of the web prototyping theme. Okay. So let's start by a bit of feedback about how the class is to start with. So that's the number of submission I get for each activities. So I didn't get much for the last one, only 25, but let's say there are still 3 weeks for the deadline, so don't worry too much about it. But if you look at the first 10, because all the deadlines have passed, so you can see that we started at 172, now we are at 120, and somehow I have highlighted the activities which are maybe the most technical, and usually the numbers are quite bad there, so it's not a good sign. So if we look on a graph, the trend is quite clear. Fewer and fewer submissions every week, with some peak or valleys each time we have something which is quite technical, so that's not great. On the bright side, 59 of you have already passed the module, so we managed to complete the 10 first activities. Have you all passed in the room?
Yeah.
Well done. So carry on.
That's what we are.
Yeah, I think there must be some correlation between people coming to the lecture and people passing. Should remind you that there is this piece of coursework, which is a web prototyping coursework, which will count as 20% of the final mark. So it's quite a big chunk. The deadline is still a few months away, but you know, it's a website, it will be a lot of PHP will be involved. And as we have seen, not many people submitted the PHP. So some people may be behind in PHP, and you really need to catch up if you want to get a decent mark at this piece of coursework. And the lecture of today will feed directly into the piece of coursework as well, because we will be expecting you to use some MySQL as well in the piece of coursework. You know that you have a team of mentors. There are 8, they have surgeries every day, a couple of hours. And so they are well paid, and they've told me that they were not that busy. So if you have any technical problem, please chat with them, they will help you. And
fortunately, not all of them are very technical, so.
Yeah, just pick the ones which are the best. Okay. I mean, all the activities are not technical anyway.
Yeah. How much they get paid?
Excuse me?
How much they get paid?
Around £10 an hour?
Well,
It's £100 a month. It's £100 a month, and they're supposed to do about £16 a month. So, 16 hours a month. It's like 2 hours each week, right? 2 hours each week, and then it's £100 a month.
No, it's not a bad job. So, I mean, some of you may be asked to become mentors next year. So, obviously, it will depend on your results and so on, but it's quite a nice little job. Okay. It's good on the CV, and you know. So, but please use them. I mean, some of them are really good. So, you know. Okay, so feedback about activity 13. As I said, I received only 25 submissions. and I got only 2 questions. Out of the 25, 23 passed, and 2 didn't pass because they didn't, you have to attach, to give me a link for getting a screenshot, and the link was not working for one reason or another. So everybody who has tried to do it has managed, and people who didn't submit the screenshot properly, I've asked them to email it to me, so they will eventually get the points. So someone said it was it was not technical, and therefore it was boring. Okay. So some people like technical activities, but as I should remind you, there are 4 themes. So some themes are very technical, like, for example, web prototyping. Some are less technical, like web of data and opportunities. In the fundamentals, there is a mixture, and making things is definitely technical. So there are quite a lot of technicals, but not everything is technical, and IT Toolbox is not just about technical things. It's really to give you the fundamentals in order to start your life as an IT professional, and some aspects are technical, some are not. Someone asked a very good question about Google Analytics. So they were wondering how Google Analytics were collecting this information. Okay, because they got some data about access to their website, and they were told that there were 40% of men, 60% of women, the age group were that, this, that. And he says, how do you get those data? Any idea?
Service? Or like when they come in, they ask like, are you a man or a woman?
No. That's not, when people are surfing your website, you don't have to enter a form before accessing the website saying I am a man 25.
Because of the login, right? They already logged in with the Google account.
Yeah, Google will
Cookies.
of your
No, if I go to your website, I may not have a Google account. Most people don't have a Google account. So how would you know that a young man has been to your website?
A young man.
The history of your
Yeah, that's getting better.
of what you've searched before, or who are you?
Yeah. So you have heard of cookies?
Yeah.
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 So basically, they are looking at your history of web surfing. So this information is stored in cookies. And according to what you have done, what you have served, they can do some educated guess. Okay? So it's just a guess. Okay? So one of those guesses is if you watch The Simpsons, it means that you are a male between 15 and 35. Okay? That's what Google is using. So obviously there are many women watching The Simpsons. There are people outside these range groups, but Google will count them that way. Okay, so it's just statistics. Okay, if you go on a website about makeup and you do it quite often, they are going to assume that you are a woman, even if some men really like makeup. Yeah. Okay, so it's just predictions. Okay. So the question is, can you trust this data? Because it's guesswork. In fact, they are using very advanced techniques. Okay, they are using what is called So they are using techniques which are called machine learning. They are using intelligent artificial intelligence. Okay, so basically they take a group of people. They know exactly in which group they are. They are going to study, let's say, 1,000 people. They know their profiles, and from that they are going to try to cluster the people. Okay, all people from this range group are going to study the news in the morning. That age group will be going on YouTube at that time of the day, okay? you can guess that getting the students, knowing if a person is a student or not, shouldn't be too difficult. Okay? If they go on the internet before 11 in the morning, they cannot be a student. They are asleep. You know. Same thing at the 2 in the morning, you will get a lot of students on the internet. So using that, using some actual data on a small group, they can extrapolate, and then when people contact, looking at their browsing history in the cookies, they can do some educated guesses. Okay. So obviously you want to know how good those guesses are, because if you are building a website and trying to customize it, optimize it for a special type of public, it's very important that you have the right information about public browsing your website. And some studies, so by academics, they have taken a group of people, they have asked them gender, where they come from, and so on. And then they looked at the Google Analytics predictions, and there was a very good match. Okay? So in practice, if the number of people who go on your website is large enough, the data they are providing is quite representative to the people going on your website. Obviously, if you are only 10 people going on your website, the statistics are not significant. But when you are starting in the thousands, that's where you can get some information, useful information from Google Analytics in terms of demographics. So that was a very So if you are interested, have a click on that link and you will know a bit more, and you will get other links on the topic. So that's all I had to say about activity 13. Okay, as the comment was, it's not very technical, so if you follow the instructions, use the tutorials, you will basically manage doing it. You just need to spend the time and being dedicated. Okay, so today the topic is MySQL. You remember last time we met, we spoke about databases. So we said that in order to extract information, write information, you need some query language, and MySQL is one of them. So SQL, let's start with SQL. So it stands for Structured Query Language, and it's a big standard for commercial database management systems. If we go back in history, there was a language called SQL, okay, Structured English Query Language, that was developed by IBM in the 70s. And so some people are still calling SQL SQL. Okay. So it was the origin, and obviously it has evolved a lot since then. It's called a query language, but actually it's doing much more than allowing you to do queries. Okay. So for example, it allows you to create the whole database. So it's not just queries. So since the 80s, SQL is standardized, and the current version is the 2011. So there is SQL, which is the standard language, but many systems have extended SQL. Okay, so in practice, very few people are using SQL. Everybody is using a different flavor of SQL. So if we look again at the most popular database engines, so as we saw last week, the number 1 is Oracle, number 2 is MySQL, number 3 is Microsoft SQL, number 4 is PostgreSQL, and we even have an SQLite. Okay, so you can see that the SQL family is very present. If we look at another way of looking at the data, we can see that number 1 again is Oracle, and then we have MySQL, PostgreSQL, Microsoft SQL, a bit more SQL. So you can the world is basically half SQL flavored and maybe 1/3 Oracle, and then there's a little bit of other things. So Oracle is professional language for usually very big applications, and licenses are very expensive, and Oracle is quite complex. SQL is easier to get, and MySQL, for example, is open source. So there are a lot of advantages. So at Kingston, we are focusing on MySQL, but if you are taking a module on advanced databases, you will be doing some Oracle as well. Okay? So you will have the top two. But obviously there are a lot of similarity. I mean, the concepts are the same. They are all relational database management systems. So if you know one, switching to the other one shouldn't be a big deal anyway. Okay, so MySQL is the leader of the SQL family, and it's open source. So that's the one we are going to study. So MySQL, as we said, is based on the standard of SQL. It has been extended. And thanks to those extensions, it's allowed you to do much more than what the original SQL language intended. Obviously, it's open source, so everybody is offered to bring some new extensions. It was designed initially to work on medium-sized databases. Okay, it was not looking at the huge systems, because that was the domain of Oracle. But nowadays, with all the extensions, all the improvement, now you can go in the huge systems as well. It's not an issue. And because there is this large community, now you can use MySQL on your smartphone and embedded systems and so on. Okay, so you can basically use it for any application you want. Okay, so MySQL, we said it's a query language for relational databases. So I introduced that a few weeks ago. So you remember what relational databases are? So it's just tables which have some logical connections, okay? And the connections is with the primary key. Excellent. So remember the table, in the columns you have the different fields of your table, and the rows have the different records. So in a field, obviously it's going to describe one aspect of your object of interest, and one of the fields must be the primary key, and the specificity is that the identifier of the primary key is unique and cannot be changed. Okay. So let's say that we have a table called persons. Okay, so you have an ID, so equivalent to your KUID, for example, and then last name, first name, address, and city. And you can write in MySQL a simple query like select last name from persons. So I guess you have already understood what it's going to do. Okay, it's not very complex. So you are going to extract all the last names from the table which is called persons. So you can see it's quite intuitive as a language. And it's going to return, obviously, the column with the last names. Before using a table, you need to tell MySQL which database you are using. Okay, because usually you will have more than one databases. So first you have to choose the database you are going to work with, and the command again is straightforward, is use. So I'm going to use that database, and then when I'm doing a query, I have to specify each time which table I'm interested in. Because different tables can have similar fields. Because you can imagine that in the Kingston University systems, you will have one table for students and one table for staff. Okay, and many fields will be similar. Another point which is important is at the end of each MySQL query, we have a semicolon, okay, which is quite common in programming languages anyway. So if we have a quick look, so you have understood that already it's quite an easy language, okay, quite intuitive. So we look at the commands that MySQL is offering. So there are two types of commands. The first type is really what you would expect from a query language. Okay, so this first type is part of what is called the data manipulation language. So you have select, that we have already seen, to extract data from the database, from a table of the database. You have update, which allow you to update some instances. Obviously, you can delete data, and you can insert new data in your database. So nothing very strange there. Everything you need in order to edit and extract information. But as I said, MySQL is more than a query language. It's also allow you to create and delete tables in your database. And again, the names are quite straightforward. You have create table, alter table if you want to change, maybe add some fields or something in the existing table. You can delete a table with drop table. You can create indices, and you can remove indices as well. So let's have an example. So typically when you are using MySQL, you have an environment, a command window, and you are going to type the information. So the cursor will start with MySQL. And so if you want to create a table, it's very simple. You just use the syntax create table, the name of the table. So in this case, we are going to call it students, bracket. And then we have the list of fields that we are expecting to have in our table. So the first field is going to be what we want is our index. Okay. So we are going to say that the index is an integer in that case. It cannot be null because we must have a value, and this value has to be unique. Okay, so it's not null. And in order not to make mistakes, usually you use what is called auto increment. Okay, because if each time you register someone, you give them an index, by mistake you could give the same index to two people. So better to use an automated system which is going to use the highest index in your table and just add one each time you add someone. So you are going to have this field, which is going to be your index. Then you will have the first name. So you are going to have some kind of characters. So here we set a value of 48 characters, which should fit most first names. Similarly for the last name, you may have an extra ID. Okay, so that could be your passport ID or wherever it comes from. You can have an email address. So again, here it's a chain of characters. And then when you have written all that, you have to specify which field is the primary key. Okay, in principle, it doesn't have to be the first one. Everybody put the first one, so it's a convention. But so just specify that your primary key is this field called none. And at the end of the process, you have this semicolon, end of your command. So when you are typing, okay, it's not like you are chat. Depends on the chat system, I guess. Sometimes you type enter and it sends the information. Sometimes it allows you to go to the next line. Okay. So here you can write everything in one line if you want. but maybe it's a bit more difficult to follow exactly what you are doing. Yeah.
Does the survey that you give us works this way? Like, is it a database?
Yeah. Yeah. So your website. I mean.
No. The survey, when we answer your questions, is that like a database?
No.
The survey.
The survey that you put.
Yeah, there is a database behind it. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Because I did some of this before, and well, I don't know. I'm not that competent.
Yeah.
I didn't get that far.
Yeah. No, definitely there is a database which is storing all your work for each of the fields that you are filling in.
Yeah, because
there is a field in the database.
It also checks whether you write a correct table.
Yeah, exactly, because for each field there is a type. Okay, so if I asking for a number, I specify that it must be integer, for example. And if you are starting writing letters, the system is going to complain. You are not providing the information I'm expecting. Or when you are entering a phone number, usually you know that a British number have 10 digits, something like that. So if it's not 10, and if they are not digits, there is something wrong and you cannot accept. Because obviously you don't want to have any mistake in your database, otherwise it's just useless. So you try to limit at the maximum. But as I get every week, I ask you to send an email address so that I can send you and tell you that I've received your work. So I'm doing some checks. Okay, I'm expecting an arrobas, for example, and some dots here and there. So I know that it looks like an email address, and if it doesn't look like it, it will complain. But if you type the wrong K numbers, you just not receive the acknowledgements of your submission. And every week I get a few. Yeah.
On this one, like on my server, I just have the normal SQL, so I could just create tables and stuff like that without programming. Yeah.
The server I've asked you to get for this module give you an SQL or MySQL. I mean, the specification was MySQL. Yeah. I know that some of you went sideways and took something slightly different, but that's okay. If it's SQL, it will look very much the same. And so it will, and that's actually one of the part of the activity of this week is go on your server and create tables, a database, a table, and enter values using the MySQL environment they provide.
So not this?
Yeah.
Because this is like coding.
No, that's not coding.
I mean, like, this is like kind of writing it, but you could do it like...
Yeah, you can also do click, click, click.
Exactly.
If you wish so. So they can give you some API, some nice API, so you don't have to learn anything about that, and you can fill in your thing. API are great when you are creating the database or the table, because it's quite limited what you can do. Okay, so in principle, the API will just reproduce all the options that MySQL would provide you. However, when you are going to do some queries with MySQL, you can do any query you want. Okay, it can be as complex as you want. Whereas the API, which really limit things, do you want to sort for which field? But in MySQL, you can combine the information of different fields and extract exactly what you want. Okay, so APIs are very important because most users of databases are not IT specialists and they don't know SQL or MySQL. Okay, all the admin people at Kingston University use databases, and the majority of them don't know anything about MySQL. So if they want to extract the information about a student, they are going to have a pop-up menu, extract all the information about that student. Okay? And maybe they will have a few boxes. I want to see that field, that field, that field, and they are going to click. So they will be limited in the requests they can do, but they will have an environment which will be more easy to use. But you, as IT specialist, you need to be able to do the most complex queries. Yeah. Again, when we are using this command window type environment, each time you type enter, you get this character which appears. Okay, so you don't have to type it. It will not be part of your query, but just telling you you're on a new line. Yeah. And each time you send a query, you will get some kind of feedback. Okay. So when the query is extract information, the feedback is the information you have asked, or some error message or saying there is nothing. When it's just creating things, there's nothing really to show. Okay. So they will tell you, okay, query is okay, and in this case, your row has been affected because your table is just empty. At the moment, it's just an empty shell with 5 different fields. Yeah. Obviously, before creating the tables, you want to make sure that you have a database. So you have also a command in MySQL which is create database with the name of the database. Okay. So you create your database, then you say use the database, and then you can start creating the tables. Okay, so some commands are, again, which are only for IT professionals that admin people would not be interested in, is what is the structure of a table? Okay, maybe there are a lot of fields that the admin people are not aware of, or maybe that we don't want them to have access to. Okay, maybe there is an emergency number, part of your record, and we want only some people at Kingston University to know your emergency number. We don't want to share it with everybody. So maybe some fields are not accessible. Still, as a IT specialist, you can look at the structure of a table. So you have the command called describe, name of the table, semicolon, and it's going to tell you what are the different fields, what are the types of those fields, can those fields be null or not? Okay, so that's, again, is the choice of the person who designed the table. We have said that obviously the primary key cannot be null, but arguably, if you want information about a student, I think the surname cannot be null. The ID, yeah, unlikely to be null. Email, possibly some people don't have an email address, possibly. I mean, maybe not when you are speaking about students, but when you are speaking about other type of databases, some people don't have an email address. So I think this one we could accept no information. For the first name, usually you want one, but maybe there are some countries, some cultures where people don't have a first name, or they just have one of the two. Okay, so depending again on your public, you may enforce a first name or not.
Yeah, that's why you use the ID, isn't it? To like separate them. Like if they have the same surname and you don't have the name, you use the student ID to like.
Yeah. But obviously, if you just have an ID and nothing else, it's not going to help that much.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. You use the surname and the ID to like.
Yeah, surname as ID, it should be enough to get you moving. So here we specified that the num is your primary key. We didn't mention other type of keys, and for the purpose of this course, it's not important. Sometimes there are default values. Okay, so you can expect maybe at Kingston University the nationality, UK or English by default, so you don't have to fill in it because the number of students from outside is maybe smaller. And here we have, as we said, auto increment for the index, because we want to make sure we are not going to repeat an index because that would be a catastrophe. Okay, so now that we have created a table, we want to insert values in that table. We have a student called Russell Martin. So command again is straightforward. Insert into the table which is called students the given values. So you have to follow the different fields. The first one is the index. So we just give it null and the system automatically is going to give something. And then first name, surname, some number, and some email address. You type your return button, the query is okay, has been understood, and one row in your table has changed. If you want to view data, so that's the select command. Do you understand what this line means? Select star from students?
Like everything.
Yeah,
Everything.
so that's general in computing science. Star usually means everything. So here we want the whole content of the table, which is called students. And here it is. So that's the content of your table. So now we have added another student, James Bond. Again, one row has been affected, this insertion. And when we do again the select star, the whole table is printed. And as I said already, the null for the index is automatically set by the system, and there is incrementation, automatic incrementation. So obviously you don't have to select everything with this star. You can have some more complex commands. So for example, you want to extract only the first name and the surname from that table. So just select first name, comma, last name from the table students, and you get this result. But again, it can be more and more complex. So for example, you want to extract everything in that table, but you want the surname to be Bond. Okay, so maybe there will be several Bonds, students, and you are going to get all the information about that student. Okay, so that's where the commands can start being quite complex. Okay, you want to select certain fields in a given table where you have some conditions. Okay, so you want a given surname, you want them living in a certain place, and you can refine your search. So if you want to do statistics, for example, about your students, that's a great command. Okay, how many students are coming from counties which are close to Kingston University? What is the demographics in terms of age, in terms of nationality, in terms of everything? With that kind of command, you can extract all the information very easily. And again, you don't have to extract everything. In this case, we just want the ID and the email address of a student whose name is Bond. Yeah? Is that clear? So again, it's quite straightforward, I think, for us. If you have a logical mind, that shouldn't be too difficult. Obviously, there is a specific syntax that you have to learn, but once you have the basics, you shouldn't have any problem doing what you want. So we can also modify a table. Okay, so I'm sure that when we created Kingston University decades, 1 century ago, I guess, the history of Kingston, maybe come back 1 century ago, there was no field for email address. Yeah. So at some point, someone had to add that field. So you could use, for example, the alter table statement and say that alter table, in the table student, you add a field. So the field here is called date, and the type is date as well. So just to confuse you a little bit, okay? So that's where it's important to look at what character you are using. So in MySQL, the types are with capital letters, okay? So it means that you will not be able to create a field which is called date using capital letters, otherwise there is ambiguity. So when you are doing that, obviously every single row of your table is going to be affected because you get an extra field. And initially, the dates will be null. Okay. So now that we have this new field with no information, you may want to add this information in the table. Okay. So we obviously is a very simple syntax. It's update. So we want to update the table students. We are going to set the field date to that value, and that value we are going to only to put it where num, so that's when the index is 1. Okay. And obviously the index is unique to one instance, so only one row is changed. And if we display the table, you can see that 1 has been changed. Obviously, if you start a new system, maybe you want to put the same date to everybody, because it's just starting. So maybe it's the date when the student first register, and maybe you didn't collect this information in the past. So when you are doing the update, what you can do is the update for all students. You put the date of today. Okay, so you don't have to do it index by index. Yeah.
For example, sometimes you get errors when you do the date format. So I don't know if it varies or is it just that one that works.
Yeah. So.
Because sometimes if you do the opposite, I think
it
gives you an error like 0, 0, 0.
Yeah, it's extremely confusing date formats in English.
Well, like USA, they do like the day before.
Yeah, there's months and
Japan has like another one like days and months. Then
yeah. So MySQL has its way, which is neither of the British way, neither the American way.
It's the ISO way. It's an international standard. Actually.
Okay, so that's the international standard. So year, month, and the day of the month. Okay. So yeah, it's true that's confusing, and so maybe for that type of stuff, using an API is very useful, because that's where people make errors when they type. Okay. So here, having a little menu and say for the months, you have the list of the months.
Oh, that's another problem, because I was doing it on GoDaddy, and you have to go back month by month of the year. So if you want to go to 1993, let's say, you have to go each month by month since 2014.
Yeah.
And you might decide.
No, I think you want a menu for the year, you want a menu for the month, and then a menu for the day. Okay. I think that would be a better interface.
Yeah.
So, but again, you need to think about all that stuff, because you can design a fantastic database, but if the people don't enter the right information, it's just useless. Okay, so you must make sure that it's foolproof. Okay, or as much as it can be. Obviously, you can delete information. And again, the statement is straightforward. You delete from a given table, and what do you delete is the instance where the name is, in this case, Bond. So again, my query is accepted. One row has been affected. And if I display my table, now I have just one instance inside my table. So I think you have understood the principle, and that's where the comments that you use all the time, okay? Because you create your table once, and you're not going to touch it for a very long time, okay? I don't know what new number will come up in the future. Maybe when we have chip implants in the body, we'll get a special number, and you have to create a new field in your table. But it's not going to happen all the time. What you really do is updating the value, entering value, changing value, extracting. That's the main operation. But there are other commands, obviously. So there is a show tables. So you get a list of all the tables in a given database. You may want to remove a field. So maybe a field is not relevant anymore. In the past, people were always asking you what is your fax number. Okay. Nowadays, what is a fax anyway? We don't even know. So alter table drop can do that. You can also drop a table. Okay, just get rid of it. So when you drop a table, not only you are removing the information which is inside, but you are removing the structure of your table. Okay. So be careful when you are using it. I think it's okay when you are building your system, but when this information is inside, that's a bit risky. Again, you can empty a table, okay, with delete from the number of the table. Okay, so you are starting maybe a new year, all the information is erased, and you are starting from scratch. But the definition of the table, its structure remains. And again, when you are deleting instances, you don't have to delete everything. You can select exactly what you want. And there you need to be cautious as well to get out the right information. So that's why, again, using a nice API, making sure that, are you sure, press again, is very useful. You have a command which is help. And you can say help and the number of a known command, and you will get all the information. So you can see that MySQL is not that complex, at least to get a basic usage of it. So I want you to use it. You have the server, they provide you with MySQL, they provide you with databases, space for databases. Sometimes you have restrictions. You can have only one databases, 2 databases, 10 databases on your system. Okay. But you have already created a database in a previous assignment, so should be okay. So we can use this interface for databases, which is great, but the users are not going to use that interface. Okay? You don't want them to mess up with your system. You don't want to give them the right to get there. You want to create some nice API so that it's easier to fill in. So you can imagine you have your website, you are going to have a form on your website, people are going to enter information, maybe to register, and you want this information to be copied into your database. So one way of doing it is to use PHP. Okay? We have already seen how PHP can be used with forms and extract the data of the form and do some computations. PHP can also allow you to manipulate databases. Okay? You remember how PHP works? Yeah? You have a PHP preprocessor, which usually is not on your machine. Okay? So it's on the server. You connect on the server, you do a request. This request is processed on the server using a PHP engine. This PHP engine may contact the database if it's relevant for that page. Once all the information is available, it's going to create an HTML page with that information and send it back to you. Okay? And your browser will just read some HTML. So as we said, it's from a developer point of view, it's quite nice because all your PHP code is hidden. Everything is happening on the server. The user just gets the outcome of their request. So how to use MySQL with PHP? So we are adding an extra level of complexity now. And it's very simple. In PHP, there is a whole library for using MySQL. And that library is called MySQL I, as extended, I think. So all the functions start with MySQL I, and then you have the keywords, logical keywords. So obviously the first one is let's connect to a server, which has that database. So MySQL I connect with the address of the host, the username, and the password. Oh no, I is for improved extension. Then you can choose the database you want to work with. Okay, so you select database and you type the name, and that's all what you need to know. From that point, you are just calling a function called MySQL I query, and within the brackets, you are writing MySQL code. Yeah?
So, choosing the database, right?
Yeah.
So, for example, if you have a form online on your website, and you want the user to enter data into it, and then that data goes into your database.
Yeah.
So you'd put that MySQL I select DB in the actual HTML elements and stuff.
In the PHP code,
Yeah.
you will specify which databases will be used in the context of that page. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, the user doesn't want to know about that.
Yeah.
All that is hidden. So you connect to a server with MySQL I connect. You select a database, and now you are rolling. You are just entering MySQL comments. Okay, the same we have seen before. The only thing is that since the command is between brackets, we don't want a semicolon at the end of your command, as you would do in MySQL. Yeah? If we go back, your MySQL command ends with a semicolon, so you just copy all that, put it here, but then you have semicolon, bracket, semicolon, which is not very pretty, remove the semicolon, the first semicolon. Yeah? Easy enough? So you do all your MySQL business using the standard MySQL queries, and then when you have finished, you are just closing the database server so that everything is neat and there is no connection left. Yeah? So here is an example, some PHP code which doing exactly what you were suggesting. Okay? So it's a PHP file, and this PHP file has two parts. So one part is taking the information, as you can guess, from a form, and that information is going to be copied in the database. And the second part is the form itself. Okay? So that's the form that we have seen in a previous lecture. Okay? Asking people to enter information. First name, last name, student ID, email, and so on. they press submit using, in this case, the method post, but that could be the other one depending on your need. And you press submit, you go back. The fact that you are pressing submit means that you are going now to the first part of the code. Okay. And it's going to extract all the information from what you have submitted. So first we connect to a database, a server, then we select a specific database, and then we create some variable, which is here SQL, where I put my SQL command. So I want to insert into a table, which, since the form is for collecting information about students, I call it students. I put the values that are retrieved from what is typed in the form. So that is the command. And then I call MySQL I query, and I put that command as parameter.
So a quick question, you say we used to do the SQL command, so it doesn't look like you're just doing SQL then. Because you put in the hash, the $ post.
Yeah, so
because this is not query, this is displaying information. It just
so that's a string.
Before in the other one he said you only put SQL commands.
Yeah, it's an SQL command.
Yeah.
But you don't know yet what is going to be typed in the form.
Oh,
okay, so the values you don't know. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So in your command, you want the system to take the variables which are entered in the form. And so here are the names of your variables. So when you write it, the actual values are written there. Okay? And then you pass that with MySQL query. Okay? So it's just the name of the variables because the content is coming from the form. Okay? But in principle, it's just a MySQL command as we have seen before. And that's it. So you send it, you close your database because your access to your server, because in order to access you needed your password and so on. So you want to be clean, you copy the information, you get out, no more problem. Yeah. So that's a typical way, a very simple way of using, of adding information inside the database using a PHP form. Okay? So as the webmaster, you go on your system, you create the database, you create the tables. For that, you don't need PHP. You just directly create all your tables and so on using the interface which is provided. So either you use the command line interface or the other one, or you're just doing the click with the forms. Now that you have started your system, in order to fill it, you are creating those forms on your web page. So people register, enter the values, and this value is copied into your database.
So why do we need a PHP file in between?
Why do we need a PHP
file? Is data underscore in the PHP?
Yeah, because MySQL is PHP comments.
Okay, so it needs to be sent first to PHP page.
Yeah, so here we have a PHP page which does both the form and the sending.
Yeah.
You can do it in 2 pages as well,
okay.
Like in the activity we did.
Because this is in an HTML.
Yeah, so the second part is pure HTML.
Yeah.
So you could create an HTML page with your form and a PHP page with collect the information from the form and send them to the database. Okay. So one way of using typical way of using PHP is collecting information that people are entering in forms, and you are storing that in a database. Another common way is extracting information from databases. Okay? If you have a website about football, and you want it to be dynamically updated, what you can do is to go to the database of the Football Association and extract the latest fields, which are going to be the latest results of the latest matches. So on your web page, you will always display the latest results automatically without doing anything. Automatically, person connect to your web page, and the latest scores in football are going to be displayed.
And that's through APIs, right? That's through APIs. Like you create the dynamic contract through APIs.
Just by.
I mean, here the API for this one, the API is a form.
Just
Yes.
connect to the database.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, for example, let's take the weather information, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to take information from the BBC weather website on your website,
Yeah.
you will need APIs. Right?
Yeah. So the
To connect
BBC
to
is
that.
providing you an API.
Yeah.
It's not providing you tables of a database.
Yeah.
Okay. They are making a bit easier for you because they are not assuming that you are a MySQL or an SQL specialist. Okay. So depending where the information is coming from, either they already provide you an API, so it's very easy to get, or you can access directly to the tables, and then MySQL can be used. Obviously, you can also display your own information of your own database on there. Okay. Any other question? No? Clear? I mean, I think it's easier when you just do it. So speaking about doing it, so at the moment you have at least two databases on your system. You have your blog, and we have already explored the fact that there are tens of tables on your blogs. It looks like a very simple system, and you have all these tables which appear and which are all connected in a clever way. So now I would like you to extract information from that database system. So your blog is now your database system using MySQL commands. Okay? Not using the nice interface and stuff, just using pure MySQL commands in a command line scenario. There is a little quiz for you to investigate some interesting commands or interesting things that we haven't been through. And again, I want you to work on the database that you created. So it was 3 weeks ago, I asked you to create a database, and you have already a couple of fields there. So now you can use MySQL in order to add more information and to update it. At the moment, we are not using PHP. I don't want to go too fast. Okay, so this activity is really about understanding how to use MySQL. Okay, so the bit of how do I connect MySQL with PHP, that will be part of your web prototyping coursework. Okay.
Are you able to give a demo on the command line?
Excuse me?
You know the command line for SQL,
Yeah.
MySQL. Could you give a demo? Quick one, please.
I don't have a server.
I can connect.
I can log into my server. I don't mind.
Yeah, we can try it if you wish.
Should we try?
Okay,
I just
so-
want to know how it works. Really.
Okay, so that's the end of the lecture. Okay, thanks for your attention. And now we are going to do a bit of extra stuff, so if you're interested, you can stay around.